작용이 아니라고. 그리고 쫓기다 깼더니 집에 나한테 분명히. 그러니까 내 말은
기다리는 며칠은 의심을 품기.
The story opens in 1997. A young man named Jin-suk is riding in the back seat of his family's car. He wakes up in a panic after having a night. His mother asks if he is all right, while his father laughs and tells him it was just a dream. His older brother, Yoo-suk, teases him for being too excited about their move into a new home. The family soon arrives at the house. Jin-suk feels an odd sense of familiarity, though he has never been there before. He looks up to his brother, who is admired for his intelligence, kindness, and athletic ability. Even after suffering an injury in a car accident, Yoo-suk remains someone Jin-suk deeply respects. As they unpack, Jin-suk learns that he must share a room with his brother. One of the smaller rooms in the house is locked, as the previous owner left belongings there. Their father explains that the owner will return in a month to collect them, but until then, Jin-suk is strictly forbidden from entering the room. That night, during dinner, Jin-suk hears a loud thud from upstairs, coming from the locked room. No one else notices, and his family dismisses it as thunder. His parents also remind him to take his prescribed medication, which he does. Later, while listening to music in bed, he hears noises again from the locked room. Compelled to investigate, he approaches the door, but Yoo-suk suddenly appears behind him. Yoo-suk hears nothing unusual and takes him outside for a walk in the rain to calm down. While they are outside, their father calls Yoo-suk, asking him to return to the house briefly. Yoo-suk leaves, telling Jin-suk to wait. Moments later, Jin-suk witnesses a shocking scene. A group of men grab Yoo-suk and force him into a van. Jin-suk tries to stop them, but fails. He memorizes the van's license plate before running back to the house to tell his parents, then collapses. When he regains consciousness, detectives question him. He recounts the abduction in detail and gives them a license plate number, but they insist that the plate does not exist. Confused and angry, Jin-suk insists that he saw it clearly, but the detectives do not believe him. Days pass, and Jin-suk struggles to cope with his brother's disappearance. He tries to study while continuing to take his medication, but he grows anxious and restless. Night after night, he dreams of a man he does not recognize, violent images of blood, and someone ordering him to be killed. 19 days later, Yoo-suk suddenly returns home. He claims to have no memory of what happened during his abduction. A psychiatrist explains that his memory loss may be a result of trauma, and they will have to wait until the memories return naturally. The family is relieved, but Jin-suk immediately notices changes in his brother's behavior. One night, Jin-suk sees Yoo-suk leave the house. The next morning, he pretends nothing happened, but his suspicions grow. When he accidentally drops one of his pills under the counter, Yoo-suk distracts him, causing him to skip his medication. Later, when Jin-suk asks where he had gone the night before, Yoo-suk insists that Jin-suk only dreamed it. Jin-suk also notices that Yoo-suk is now limping on the opposite leg from his old injury. When questioned, Yoo-suk dismisses it as a mistake, and Jin-suk reluctantly accepts his explanation. Still, the inconsistencies disturb him. Late that night, while Jin-suk is studying at his desk, Yoo-suk quietly approaches. He clicks the lead out of a mechanical pencil until is dangerously close to Jin-suk's side. After holding it there, he finally withdraws and leaves the house. Jin-suk, who had been pretending to sleep, opens his eyes and secretly follows him. He trails his brother through town until Yoo-suk meets with the same detectives who had questioned Jin-suk weeks earlier. To his shock, they address Yoo-suk as boss. Realizing something is wrong, Jin-suk tries to retreat, but the detectives spot him and chase him through the streets. Just as he thinks he has escaped, Yoo-suk appears and presses a cloth over his mouth, knocking him unconscious. The next morning, Jin-suk wakes up at his desk as if nothing happened. Terrified, he locks himself in the bathroom and demands answers from his brother. Yoo-suk insists it was all a hallucination caused by skipping his medication. After some time, Jin-suk calms down and apologizes, but his doubts linger. Later, he finds a broken pencil lead Yoo-suk had dropped, proof that what he saw was real. Jin-suk becomes convinced that the man who returned is not his real brother. He tells his mother about his suspicions, but she dismisses him with concern. That night, he once again hears strange noises coming from the locked room. Armed with a baseball bat, he cautiously enters, but inside he only finds furniture covered in sheets. For a brief moment, he imagines seeing his brother hanging from the ceiling, but when he blinks, it is gone. It was only a dream. Later, while getting water, he overhears his mother talking on the phone. To his shock, she is speaking with Yoo-suk, telling him everything Jin-suk had confessed earlier. Realizing that his suspicions are correct, Jin-suk accidentally makes a noise, and she immediately begins searching the house. He flees outside and climbs the wall in the pouring rain, sneaking back into his room before she can check on him. When she finds him soaked in sweat under his blanket, she assumes he has been asleep all along. As soon as she leaves, Jin-suk escapes out the window. Meanwhile, his mother calls his father, admitting that her cover has been blown. Outside, Jin-suk heads for the gate, but finds both of his parents waiting for him, joined by an unknown man. They urge him to come back inside, but he runs into the street instead. The stranger chases him until he collides with a passing motorbike, giving Jin-suk enough time to reach a police station. Inside, Jin-suk pleads with the officers, explaining that his family is not real and that his brother was replaced. When they ask his age, he confidently replies that he is 21. But the police inform him that it is the year 2017, not 1997. Confused, Jin-suk insists they are wrong until he is shown a mirror. For the first time, he sees his reflection and realizes he is not a young man, but over 40 years old. Shaken, Jin-suk leaves the station and returns to the house. He breaks into the locked room and finds a disturbing scene. Mannequins covered in fake blood, arranged to resemble a crime scene. His supposed family soon arrives and confronts him. At last, they reveal the truth. The young man posing as Yoo-suk explains everything. 20 years earlier, in December 1997, a brutal murder took place in this very house. A mother and her teenage daughter were killed. The case remained unsolved, but the surviving family never gave up on finding the killer. Years later, they hired him to uncover the truth. His investigation pointed to Jin-suk as the murderer. When Jin-suk was finally located, he denied any memory of the crime. Believing he had repressed his guilt, the group devised a plan. They decided to recreate the events of 1997, returning him to what they assumed was his last happy memory, moving into a new house with his family. The locked room was staged to resemble the murder scene. The man and two accomplices posed as his parents, while he himself acted as Yoo-suk. Jin-suk was given daily medication to keep him under hypnosis and disorient. The abduction Jin-suk witnessed 19 days earlier had been real. During that time, the impersonator was arrested on unrelated charges and only released later. His sudden reappearance was explained away as memory loss. From then on, the plan continued, with the goal of forcing Jin-suk to recall the truth of what he had done. Despite their efforts, Jin-suk maintains that he has never killed anyone. As they transport him in a van, the imposter desperately urges him to remember. In the struggle, Jin-suk leaps out of the moving vehicle and flees. The van crashes, killing the two who posed as his parents and leaving the imposter in. Moments later, Jin-suk himself is struck by a car. Lying on the ground, he finally begins to recover his memories of the past. The truth resurfaces. Years ago, Jin-suk's real family was in a car accident. Both of his parents were killed, and his older brother was left in critical condition. Desperate for money to pay for the surgery, Jin-suk searched for work but could not find any. Then, an anonymous person contacted him with a disturbing offer: money in exchange for killing a woman, but leaving her two children unharmed. With no other options, Jin-suk agreed. The anonymous client gave Jin-suk an address and instructions. Late at night, he entered the house quietly, holding a knife. He intended to follow through, but once inside, he hesitated. Seeing the woman asleep, he realized he could not go through it. He was about to leave when the woman awoke and saw him standing in the room. Terrified, she screamed. Jin-suk begged her not to scream and promised to leave, but the noise woke her teenage daughter. The girl came downstairs, saw the knife, and screamed as well before running back upstairs. Panicking, Jin-suk chased after her. As he forced the door open, he accidentally stabbed the girl. Shocked, he froze, but the woman rushed up the stairs. Seeing her daughter bleeding, she screamed again. In desperation, Jin-suk struck her, killing her too. Before leaving, a small boy appeared in the hallway. To protect him, Jin Suk told the child to go back into his room, count to 110, and wait for his mother and sister to return. The boy obeyed, while Jin Suk fled the house. Outside, Jin Suk realized the house belonged to his brother's doctor, the man treating Yu Suk after the accident. He confronted the doctor, demanding to know why he had ordered such a thing. The doctor explained that he needed the insurance money from his wife's death to support the children during the country's financial crisis. Without it, they would be ruined. Horrified, Jin Suk accused him of sacrificing his own family. A struggle followed, ending when the doctor slipped from the rooftop and fell to his death. In the present day, Jin Suk wakes up in a hospital. The imposter, who had pretended to be his brother, is waiting at his bedside. He produces a syringe filled with poison, intending to end Jin Suk's life. In the hospital room, the man who had pretended to be Yu Suk prepares to inject Jin Suk with a deadly dose. Before he can act, Jin Suk speaks. His memories have fully returned, and he recounts everything that happened 20 years earlier. The accident, the financial desperation, and the night he took the lives of the woman and her daughter. Hearing this, the imposter finally reveals his true identity. He is the little boy Jin Suk spared that night. After losing his mother and sister, his relatives took what remained of the family's money, leaving him abandoned in an orphanage. He grew up with nothing, carrying the weight of that night for decades. The man asks Jin Suk a final question. Was it his father who ordered the crime? He has always suspected that his father was responsible. Jin Suk, overwhelmed by guilt, lies to him. He claims he acted alone. The man sees through the lie, but the truth is too heavy to bear. Unable to cope with the pain, the imposter walks to the window and ends his own life. Left alone, Jin Suk decides he cannot live with what he has done. He takes the syringe meant for him and uses it on himself. In a final flashback, we return to the day of the accident. Jin Suk is standing by the river when he meets a young boy, the same child whose life he once spared. Neither knows how deeply their lives will become entwined, but the meeting seals their fates. The story closes on the devastating truth. One desperate choice set off a chain of events that haunted them both for decades.